The Vraxian ship descended through the clouds of the blue and green world. Commander Kethrak pressed his clawed hand against the viewing screen and felt his hunting instincts rise within him. His species had conquered 17 worlds. They had hunted every creature that dared to call itself a predator. The Vraxians were the apex of the galaxy, and every species they met learned this truth. Kethrak stood nearly 3 meters tall. His body was covered in thick scales the color of dried blood. 4 arms ended in razor-sharp claws that could tear through metal. His eyes were large and yellow, built to see in complete darkness. His jaw could unhinge to swallow prey whole. For 10,000 years, his people had been the ultimate hunters of the stars. "Commander," said his second Talvex, "we are detecting settlements on the surface, primitive structures, basic technology." Kethrak made a sound of pleasure. "Another easy conquest. What creatures inhabit this world?" "They call themselves humans, Commander. They are soft-skinned. No natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no venom. They are prey animals that somehow developed intelligence." The bridge crew made sounds of amusement. A prey species that had learned to build things. How amusing, how pathetic. "We will land near their largest settlement," Kethrak commanded. "We will hunt their leaders and make them understand their place in the natural order. When they see what true predators can do, they will submit." The ship landed in a forest clearing several kilometers from a human city. Kethrak led his hunting party of 20 Vraxians into the woods. They moved silently despite their size. Their scales changed color to match the shadows. This was what they were born to do. The forest was strange but beautiful. Tall trees with green leaves. Small creatures that fled at their approach. Birds that sang in the branches. It reminded Kethrak of the hunting grounds on his homeworld before his people had killed everything worth hunting. "Commander," whispered Talvex, "I am detecting a human nearby. Alone. An easy first kill." Kethrak gestured for his hunters to spread out. They would surround this human, study it, and then end it quickly. A small victory before the true hunt began. They found the human sitting on a fallen log. It was a male, older than young but not yet elderly. He wore simple clothes in colors of brown and green. In his hands was a primitive projectile weapon, long and made of metal and wood. The human was eating something from a small container. Kethrak studied the creature with confusion. It had no armor, no natural defenses. Its eyes were small and forward-facing. Its teeth were flat and useless. Its body was thin and weak. How had such a pathetic thing survived on any world? He gave the signal to attack. 20 Vraxian hunters burst from the shadows. They expected the human to scream, to run, to freeze in terror as all prey did. Instead, the human looked up at them with an expression that Kethrak could not understand. The human smiled. "Well now," the human said in a calm voice, "I was wondering when you folks would show yourselves. Been watching you since you landed." Kethrak stopped in shock. The human had known they were there. Impossible. Their stealth was perfect. No prey species had ever detected them before the kill. "You are surrounded, prey creature," Kethrak said, his translator converting his words. "You will die now." The human took another bite of his food. "Name's Earl," he said. "Earl Thompson. Been hunting these woods for 40 years. And son, you made 3 mistakes coming here." "We do not make mistakes," Kethrak growled. "We are the Vraxians. We are the apex predators of the galaxy." Earl stood up slowly. He was smaller than Kethrak by more than a meter. He should have been trembling. He should have been begging. Instead, he looked at the Vraxian commander with eyes that held no fear at all. "First mistake," Earl said. "You landed your ship in Hendricks County. This is hunting country. Everybody here has guns and knows how to use them. Second mistake, you came through my property. I know every tree, every rock, every shadow in these woods. Third mistake." Earl whistled, a sharp sound that cut through the forest. "You forgot that humans don't hunt alone." The forest exploded with sound. Gunfire erupted from everywhere at once. Kethrak watched in horror as 5 of his hunters fell in the first second. He could not see the attackers. He could not smell them. They were invisible. "Retreat," he screamed. "Retreat to the ship." But there was no retreat. More humans emerged from the trees, from holes in the ground, from positions in the branches above. They wore the same colors as the forest. They carried weapons that roared with fire and thunder. They moved with a coordination that spoke of long practice. Kethrak ran. He had never run from prey before, but these were not prey. He understood that now with terrible clarity. He reached the clearing where his ship had landed. More of his hunters had made it back. Only 8 remained of the 20. They were warriors who had conquered worlds, and these soft-skinned humans had cut them down like grass. "Commander," Talvik shouted, "the ship." Kethrak looked up. His ship was burning. Humans stood around it with weapons that should not exist on a primitive world, weapons that had melted through Vraxian hull metal. An older human female walked toward them. She wore a uniform with symbols on it. Her hair was gray, her face lined with age, but she moved with the confidence of a supreme predator. "I'm Sheriff Martinez," she said. "You're under arrest for trespassing, attempted murder, and invasion of United States territory. Drop your weapons and get on the ground." Kethrak roared and charged. His claws would tear this small female apart. She was nothing. She was prey. Sheriff Martinez moved faster than any human should be able to move. She sidestepped his charge, drew a weapon from her belt, and fired 3 times. The rounds punched through his scales like they were paper. Kethrak fell to his knees, purple blood pouring from his wounds. "Every species thinks they're the apex predator," Martinez said, looking down at him. "Then they come to Earth, then they meet us, and then they learn the same lesson you're learning right now." Kethrak looked up at her with dying eyes. "What lesson?" he managed to ask. Martinez holstered her weapon. "Humans don't look like predators because we didn't need to. We were so good at killing that evolution gave up trying to make us better at it. We're the only species in the galaxy that hunts for fun. You came here looking for prey. Instead, you found the one thing in the universe that every predator should fear." "What is that?" Kethrak whispered. "A better hunter." Kethrak died in the dirt of an alien world, killed by creatures he had thought were prey. His last thought was that perhaps the galaxy was not what his people had believed it to be. The news of the Vraxian landing spread across Earth within hours. Every government, every military, every citizen learned that aliens had come and that aliens had died. The response was not panic. It was not fear. It was a cold, calculating fury that had driven humanity since its first ancestors picked up rocks and decided that they would not be eaten today. In Washington, D.C., the president met with her advisors. In Moscow, generals gathered around maps of the stars. In Beijing, scientists studied the wreckage of the Vraxian ship. In every nation on every continent, humans prepared for what they knew was coming. Because if there was one thing humans understood, it was that predators always traveled in packs. The Vraxians would send more ships. They would come looking for revenge, for conquest, for the pride that Kethrak had lost in a forest in Indiana. And humanity would be ready. In Hendricks County, Earl Thompson sat on his porch and cleaned his rifle. His granddaughter sat beside him, watching him work. "Grandpa," she asked, "were you scared when those aliens came?" Earl thought about the question. He thought about the Vraxian commander, so confident in his power, so sure that he was the ultimate predator. He thought about what the alien had not understood, could not have understood. "No, honey," Earl said. "I wasn't scared. I've been hunting all my life. When you're a hunter, you learn to read your prey. You learn to understand how they think, how they move, what they're afraid of. Those aliens, they were hunters too, but they made the mistake every predator makes when they meet something new." "What mistake?" Earl smiled, the same smile he had given Kethrak in the forest. They assumed they were the most dangerous thing in the woods. They forgot that the most dangerous predator doesn't always look dangerous. Sometimes it looks like an old man sitting on a log. Sometimes it looks like a grandma with a badge. Sometimes it looks like a bunch of folks who just want to protect their homes. His granddaughter nodded slowly. "So what happens now, Grandpa?" Earl looked up at the sky where the stars were beginning to appear in the darkening blue. Now we wait. More of them will come. They always do. And when they come, we'll show them the same thing we showed these ones." "What's that?" "That humans aren't prey. We never were. We're what happens when a prey species decides it's tired of being eaten. We're what happens when the hunted becomes the hunter. And we're very, very good at it." 3 weeks later, the Vraxian Empire received a message from their lost ship. It was not a distress call. It was not a plea for help. It was a recording sent by the humans who had destroyed their hunters. The recording showed the bodies of the Vraxian warriors laid out in a row. It showed the wreckage of their ship. And it showed a human, a young woman with dark hair and a calm voice, speaking directly into the camera. "This message is for whoever sent these things to our planet. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I'm speaking on behalf of the United Nations of Earth. Your hunters came to our world. They tried to kill our people. They failed. Every single one of them is dead, and your ship is in pieces in our laboratories. We're learning your technology. We're understanding your weapons. We're studying your biology. And we're preparing." Dr. Chen leaned closer to the camera. Her eyes were hard and cold and utterly without mercy. "You thought we were prey. You were wrong. We are the apex predators of Earth. We have killed every dangerous creature on our planet. We have hunted species to extinction. We have turned the entire natural world into our hunting ground. And now, thanks to you, we know we're not alone in the universe. We know there are other predators out there. Other things that think they can hunt us." She smiled, and it was the same smile Earl had given Kethrak. "We're coming for you, not today, not tomorrow, but someday. We will find your worlds, we will hunt your hunters, and we will show you what apex truly means. This is your only warning. Stay away from Earth. Because the next time you come here, we won't just defend ourselves. We'll follow you home." The recording ended. In the heart of the Vraxian Empire, the War Council watched the message in silence. They had conquered 17 worlds. They had never received a message like this. They had never seen prey speak with such confidence, such certainty, such predatory intent. Supreme Hunter Vexkai turned to his advisors. What manner of creatures are these humans? No one could answer. No one had ever seen anything like them. Prey that did not run, prey that fought back, prey that won. Send a full invasion fleet, Vexkai commanded. 100 ships, 10,000 hunters. We will show these humans what true predators can do. But in his heart, in the deepest part of his hunter's instincts, Vexkai felt something he had never felt before. Something cold and unfamiliar. It took him a long time to recognize the feeling. It was fear. The invasion fleet arrived 3 months later. 100 ships filled the sky above Earth, blocking out the sun with their massive forms. 10,000 Vraxian hunters prepared for the greatest hunt in their history. They would descend upon this world of soft-skinned prey and teach them the true meaning of fear. Supreme Hunter Vexkai watched from his command ship as his warriors loaded into their landing craft. This would be the greatest victory the Vraxian Empire had ever known. They would hunt every human on this planet. They would mount their skulls as trophies. They would burn their cities and salt their fields. "Supreme Hunter," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet." "Show me." The screen flickered and a human appeared. He was an older male with gray hair and cold eyes. He wore a uniform covered in symbols and medals. Behind him, Vexkai could see other humans, all watching the screen with expressions of calm readiness. "This is General Marcus Stone of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said. "You are in violation of Earth sovereign space. You have one chance to withdraw. Take it." Vexkai laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. "One chance. You have 100 ships above your world. You have 10,000 hunters ready to descend upon you, and you offer us one chance." General Stone did not smile. He did not blink. He simply nodded to someone off-screen. "Your 3 months were not spent hiding, were they?" Stone asked. "You weren't building defenses. You weren't running. You were watching us, studying us, trying to understand what you were dealing with." "We were preparing your graves," Vexkai said. "No," Stone's voice was ice. "You were giving us time. Time to reverse engineer the ship your hunters left behind. Time to understand your weapons, your shields, your technology. Time to build our own." The view screen behind Stone changed. It showed space, the blackness between Earth and the Vraxian fleet. And in that space something was moving. Thousands of somethings. "3 months ago we had nothing that could reach your ships," Stone said. "Today we have everything. We took your technology and we made it better. We're humans, that's what we do. We adapt. We improve. We overcome. You thought you were giving us time to despair. Instead, you gave us time to become something far more dangerous than we ever were before." The first missiles struck the Vraxian fleet before Vexkai could give the order to defend. Human ships, small and fast and deadly, emerged from behind Earth's moon. They moved with a speed and precision that no Vraxian vessel could match. "All ships defensive formation," Vexkai screamed. But it was too late. The humans had learned from the crashed ship. They had studied every weakness, every blind spot, every vulnerability. Their weapons struck those weaknesses with surgical precision. Ships exploded. Warriors died. The pride of the Vraxian Empire burned in the cold darkness of space. On Earth, Earl Thompson watched the battle from his porch. His granddaughter sat beside him, holding a tablet that showed the live feed from military satellites. They watched as human fighters danced between the massive Vraxian ships, striking and retreating, wearing them down like wolves bringing down a wounded elk. "How are we winning, Grandpa?" his granddaughter asked. Earl pointed at the screen. "See how their ships move? Big, slow, powerful. They've never had to fight anything their size before. They've always been the biggest predators around. But humans, we've always had to fight things bigger than us. Mammoths, tigers, bears. We learned a long time ago that size isn't everything." "What is everything?" "Cunning, patience, teamwork, the willingness to adapt, the ability to learn from your enemy and turn their strengths into weaknesses." Earl smiled. "And maybe a little bit of meanness. You've got to be willing to do whatever it takes to survive. Those aliens, they hunt for pride, for sport, for dominance. Humans, we hunt to live. And that makes us a whole lot more dangerous." In orbit, the battle raged. Vexkai watched in disbelief as ship after ship fell to the human assault. This was not possible. These were prey creatures. They should not be able to fight like this. They should not be able to win. "Supreme Hunter," his tactical officer shouted. "We've lost 40 ships. The humans are targeting our engines, our weapons, our shields. They know exactly where to strike." "Then strike back," Vexkai roared. "We are Vraxians. We are the apex predators of the galaxy." But his words rang hollow. The evidence of his eyes told a different story. The humans were not prey. They had never been prey. They were something else entirely. A human ship appeared on his view screen, larger than the fighters, painted with symbols he could not read. A communication request came through, and Vexkai accepted it out of desperate hope. The face that appeared was not General Stone. It was a young woman, perhaps 30 years old by human standards. She wore a flight suit and a helmet that obscured part of her face. Her eyes were the color of the sky, and they held the same cold certainty that Stone's had held. "I'm Commander Sarah Chen," she said. "You've met my message. Now you're meeting my squadron. We call ourselves the Hunters. We're the humans who volunteered to take your technology and use it against you. We're the ones who spent 3 months learning everything about your ships, your tactics, your weaknesses." "Why are you telling me this?" Vexguy demanded. "Because I want you to understand something before you die." Chen's voice was soft, almost gentle. "You came here because you thought we were weak. You saw our soft skin and our flat teeth and our small eyes, and you thought we were prey. But those things don't make us weak. They make us adaptable. We don't have claws because we make tools that are sharper than any claw. We don't have fangs because we build weapons more deadly than any bite. We don't have scales because we create armor that's stronger than any hide." She leaned closer to the camera. "You're not losing because we're lucky. You're not losing because you made mistakes. You're losing because you fundamentally misunderstood what we are. We're not prey that learn to fight back. We're predators that evolve to look like prey. And that makes us more dangerous than anything you've ever encountered." The communication ended. Vexguy looked around his bridge at his surviving officers. They were warriors who had hunted 100 species across a dozen worlds. They had never known defeat. They had never known fear. They knew it now. "Supreme Hunter," his first officer said quietly, "what are your orders?" Vexguy looked at the view screen. 60 of his ships were gone. The remaining 40 were damaged, surrounded, outmaneuvered. The humans were circling them like predators around wounded prey. "Like hunters." "Signal the retreat," Vexguy said. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. "All ships retreat to the homeworld. We must warn the Empire." "But Supreme Hunter, our honor." "Our honor means nothing if we're all dead." Vexguy slammed his claw against his command chair. "These humans, they are not what we thought. The Empire must know. They must prepare." The surviving Vraxian ships turned and fled. The humans did not pursue. They had made their point. They had won. On the command ship that carried General Stone, the officers cheered as the alien fleet retreated. They had done it. They had defeated an invasion from the stars. They had proven that humanity would not be conquered, would not be hunted, would not be prey. Stone did not cheer. He watched the view screen as the Vraxian ships disappeared into the darkness of space. He thought about what came next. "Sir," one of his officers said, "we won. Why aren't you celebrating?" Stone turned to face her. His eyes were the eyes of a hunter, cold and calculating and utterly without mercy. "Because this was just the beginning," he said. "They'll come back, more ships, more hunters. They'll bring everything they have because we embarrassed them. We made them afraid. And the only thing more dangerous than a predator is a predator that's been wounded and humiliated." He looked back at the stars, where the Vraxians had disappeared. "We need to be ready, not just to defend ourselves, but to take the fight to them. They came to our home and tried to hunt us. Now it's time for us to hunt them." In her fighter, Commander Chen heard Stone's words over the command frequency. She smiled, and it was the same smile her grandmother had given the first Vraxian to set foot on Earth. "Sounds like fun," she said to herself. "Let's show the galaxy what Apex really means." 2 years passed. 2 years of preparation, of building, of learning. The humans took every piece of Vraxian technology they had captured and made it better. They built ships that could cross the stars. They trained soldiers who could fight in any environment. They developed weapons that could challenge any predator in the galaxy. And then they went hunting. The first target was a Vraxian colony world called Krathvex. It was a military outpost, a staging ground for the hunters who terrorized a dozen nearby systems. The species who lived in those systems had never known peace. They had never known safety. They had only known the fear of being hunted. Commander Sarah Chen led the first human fleet beyond Earth's solar system. 100 ships, 10,000 soldiers, and a mission that would change the galaxy forever. "All units," Chen broadcast as they approached Krathvex, "this is Commander Chen. We're about to engage the enemy on their home ground. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember what they tried to do to our world. And remember that we're not just fighting to protect Earth. We're fighting to show every species in this galaxy that predators can be stopped, that hunters can become the hunted. That apex is not a birthright. It's earned." The Vraxians on Krathvex detected the human fleet and scrambled to respond. They had been expecting this. They had been preparing for this. Since the retreat from Earth, the entire Vraxian Empire had been focused on one thing: revenge. But they were not prepared for what they faced. The human ships moved in patterns the Vraxians could not predict. They struck from angles that should have been impossible. They used tactics that no prey species should have known, because no prey species had ever fought back like this before. On the surface of Krathvex, human soldiers landed in drop pods that hit the ground like meteors. They emerged in armor that absorbed Vraxian weapon fire. They carried rifles that could punch through Vraxian scales at any range. They moved in squads, coordinated, disciplined, utterly lethal. A Vraxian commander named Talvex the Younger, son of the hunter who had died on Earth, led the defense of the main military compound. He had sworn an oath on his father's blood to kill the humans who had destroyed his hunting party. He had trained for this moment every day for 2 years. It was not enough. The humans breached the compound walls in 3 places simultaneously. They moved through the corridors like shadows, like ghosts, like the predators they had become. Talvex watched his warriors fall one by one, cut down by creatures half their size. He made his stand in the command center, surrounded by his best hunters. They would die with honor. They would take as many humans with them as they could. The door exploded inward. A human soldier entered, moving with a speed and grace that Talvex had never seen in any species. The human wore black armor covered in strange markings. His helmet hid his face. His rifle was steady and sure. "Talvex the Younger," the human said, and his voice was cold. "Son of Talvex the Elder, you swore revenge for your father's death. Do you remember what your father's last words were?" Talvex lunged, claws extended. The human sidestepped and struck him with the butt of his rifle. Talvex fell, his scales cracked, purple blood flowing from his wounds. "He asked what humans are," the soldier said. "Your supreme hunter asked the same question before he died. Let me give you the answer they never received." The human removed his helmet. He was old, older than most human soldiers. His hair was gray, his face lined with age, but his eyes were sharp and clear and utterly without mercy. "My name is Earl Thompson," he said. "Your father died on my property. He came to my woods thinking he was the most dangerous thing there. He was wrong, and now you've made the same mistake." Talvex tried to rise, tried to fight, tried to fulfill his oath. Earl shot him through the heart. "I'm 73 years old," Earl said to the dying Vraxian. "I've been hunting since I was 5. I've killed more animals than I can count, but I never killed for sport. I never killed for pride. I killed because that's what humans do. We hunt. We survive. We win." He looked around the command center, at the bodies of the Vraxian hunters. "Your species doesn't understand that. You think hunting is about being the biggest, the strongest, the most dangerous. But that's not what hunting is. Hunting is about patience. It's about knowing your prey. It's about waiting for the right moment and striking without hesitation. Your people have the tools of predators, but you don't have the souls of hunters. You never learned what it really means to hunt." Talvex died with Earl's words echoing in his ears. The last thing he saw was the old human walking away, rifle over his shoulder, as calm as if he were walking through his own woods back on Earth. The battle for Krathvex lasted 6 hours. At the end of it, the Vraxian military presence on the planet was destroyed. The human fleet had lost 12 ships. The Vraxians had lost everything. But that was not the most important outcome of the battle. The most important outcome was the message that spread across the galaxy in the hours that followed. Other species, species that had lived in fear of the Vraxians for generations, watched as the humans dismantled the predators who had terrorized them. They watched as the hunters became the hunted. They watched as everything they had believed about the natural order of the universe was proven wrong. And they began to hope. On a world called Thesson Prime, A species called the Kelthari emerged from their underground bunkers for the first time in 50 years. They looked up at the sky and saw human ships in orbit. They expected to see new predators, new hunters, new terrors. Instead, they received a message. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Fleet. We have liberated this system from Vraxian control. You are free. No one will hunt you again." The Kelthari did not believe it at first. They had been prey for too long. They had forgotten what freedom felt like. But then the human ships landed. Soldiers emerged, not to hunt, but to help. They brought food and medicine and technology. They helped the Kelthari rebuild what the Vraxians had destroyed. A young Kelthari approached one of the human soldiers. She was small and fragile, with large eyes that had evolved to see in the darkness of underground caves. She looked up at the human, who seemed so strange, so alien, so impossibly confident. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you help us? You are predators too. We can see it in your eyes." The soldier knelt down to her level. Her name was Maria Santos, and she had joined the fleet because her grandmother had been killed in the first Vraxian attack on Earth. "Yes," Maria said, "we are predators, but there's more than one kind of predator in the universe. Some predators hunt to dominate, they kill for sport, they eat the weak because they can. Those are the Vraxians." She smiled, and it was a warm smile, a kind smile, nothing like the cold expressions of the Vraxian hunters. "But there's another kind of predator, the kind that hunts to protect, the kind that kills so others can live, the kind that stands between the weak and the strong and says, 'No further.' That's what humans are. We're not here to hunt you. We're here to hunt the things that hunt you." The Kelthari girl did not fully understand. How could she? Her entire life had been shaped by fear of predators, but something in the human's words planted a seed of hope in her heart. Maybe not all predators were the same. Maybe some predators could be protectors. Maybe, for the first time in 50 years, the Kelthari could live without fear. The war against the Vraxian Empire lasted 7 years. It was not an easy war. The Vraxians were powerful and numerous, and utterly committed to maintaining their position as the apex predators of the galaxy. They threw everything they had at the humans, every ship, every warrior, every weapon. It was not enough. The humans had something the Vraxians did not understand. They had something that no pure predator species could comprehend. They had purpose. The Vraxians hunted for pride, for sport, for dominance. When they began to lose, their hunters fought with rage and desperation. They made mistakes. They acted without coordination. They turned on each other, blaming their failures on weakness rather than facing the truth. The humans fought for something else. They fought to protect their home. They fought to free the species the Vraxians had terrorized. They fought because they understood that the galaxy could not survive with predators like the Vraxians in control. And when they began to win, they did not become arrogant. They did not lose their focus. They hunted with patience and precision and an absolute commitment to victory. Supreme Hunter Vexkai watched his empire crumble from his throne room on the Vraxian homeworld. He had lived for 300 years. He had hunted 100 species. He had never known defeat until the humans came. Now, with human ships in orbit above his planet and human soldiers marching through his cities, he finally understood what he had failed to see 7 years ago. The humans were not prey that had learned to fight. They were not soft creatures who had stumbled upon technology. They were predators, true predators, the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever produced. They were dangerous because they looked weak. Their enemies underestimated them, dismissed them, assumed they were easy prey. By the time those enemies understood their mistake, it was too late. They were dangerous because they adapted. Every weapon the Vraxians used, the humans learned to counter. Every tactic the Vraxians employed, the humans improved upon. They grew stronger with every battle, learning from their losses, building on their victories. But most of all, they were dangerous because they cared. They did not hunt for sport. They did not kill for pride. They fought to protect their own, and they extended that protection to every species willing to stand with them. The door to Vexguy's throne room opened. A human entered, alone, unarmed. It was the old one, the one called Earl Thompson. Vexguy had learned his name. He had studied the humans who had defeated his people, trying to understand how prey could become predator. Earl Thompson was 90 years old now. He walked with a cane, his body bent by age. But his eyes were still sharp, still clear, still holding the cold certainty of a hunter who has never known true defeat. "You're the one who started this," Vexguy said. "You killed my hunters in those woods on Earth. You showed your species what they could become." Earl shook his head. "I didn't show them anything. They already knew. Every human knows deep down what we are. We just don't talk about it much. We don't like to admit that underneath all our civilization and all our rules, we're still the same creatures who hunted mammoths across the ice. We're still the same species that killed every large predator on our planet before we even invented writing." He walked closer to the throne, his cane tapping against the floor. "Your people made a mistake when you came to Earth. You saw our cities and our art and our books, and you thought we had become soft. You thought we had forgotten how to hunt, but we hadn't forgotten. We just hadn't needed to remember, not until you reminded us." Vexguy rose from his throne. He was still huge, still powerful, still covered in claws and scales and fangs. But he felt small compared to this ancient human with his walking cane and his cold eyes. "What happens now?" the Supreme Hunter asked. "That depends on you," Earl said. "We're not going to exterminate your species. We're not predators like you. We don't hunt for sport or pride. But we are going to make sure you can never threaten anyone again. Your empire is finished. Your fleets are destroyed. Your hunters are dead or captured. The species you terrorized are free." He looked up at Vexguy with an expression that was almost sad. "You could have been great, you know. Your people have strength and speed and power that most species can only dream of. But you used those gifts to make the galaxy worse. You hunted the weak instead of protecting them. You built an empire of fear instead of an alliance of hope. And in the end, that's why you lost." "We lost because you were stronger," Vexguy said bitterly. "No," Earl shook his head. "You lost because we were better hunters. There's a difference. Strong predators win through force. Good hunters win through understanding. We understood you, Vexguy. We understood what drove you, what you feared, what you couldn't comprehend. And we used that understanding to beat you." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "One more thing," he said. "My granddaughter, the one who asked me if I was scared when your people first came to Earth. She's a commander now. She's in charge of the fleet that's going to patrol your borders and make sure you never threaten anyone again. Her name is Alina Thompson. If you or your people ever think about going back to your old ways, she'll be there to remind you what happens when predators forget their place." Earl walked out of the throne room. Vexguy stood alone, the last supreme hunter of a fallen empire, and wondered how everything had gone so wrong. He had come to Earth looking for prey. He had found the one thing that every predator fears most, a predator better than himself. The galaxy had learned what apex truly meant. It didn't mean the biggest or the strongest or the most dangerous. It meant the most adaptable, the most determined, the most willing to sacrifice for others. It meant human. In the years that followed, humanity's role in the galaxy changed. They were no longer just defenders of their own world. They were protectors of every species that had suffered under predator races like the Vraxians. They built alliances with the Kelthari and dozens of other species who had lived in fear for generations. They created a new galactic order, one based on cooperation instead of predation. Species that had once hidden from hunters now stood proudly alongside human ships. Worlds that had been hunting grounds became free planets. And always at the heart of it were the hunters, the humans who had taken the predator's role and transformed it into something new, Not hunters of the weak, but hunters of the strong. Not predators who preyed on the helpless, but protectors who hunted the predators themselves. Earl Thompson died at 93, surrounded by his family and friends. His last words were to his great-granddaughter, a young woman who would one day command the fleet that protected the entire galaxy. "Remember what we are," he told her. "Never forget it. We're hunters. That's in our blood, in our bones, in our souls. But what makes us different, what makes us better, is that we choose what to hunt. We don't hunt the weak because we can. We hunt the strong because we should. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us apex." She promised to remember, and she did. The Vraxians had come to Earth looking for prey. They found something else entirely. They found a species that had evolved to be the most dangerous hunters in the universe, not through claws or fangs or scales, but through intelligence and adaptability and an unbreakable will to protect their own. They found what apex truly meant. And the galaxy was never the same.